thinking about, when I'm speaking to founders and those at early stage, a lot of their time is spent going out to try and raise money, and a big
Mhm.
part of that is pitching to VC firms like yourself. What are some common mistakes that you see regularly, or maybe trends within those pitches that you think are easily correctable, or things that people can maybe tweak that would be helpful for our listeners out there?
The most common ones we see, one would be um, just spending too long pitching and talking, period. It's
Hmm.
just better to have a few really concise, exciting things to share about your business, and then stop talking and let the investor have a chance to get curious and ask questions and lead the conversation where they want it to go.
Hmm.
Because if you direct it, you could have somebody who's very interested, but they don't get a chance to ask their questions. You could have somebody who's very uninterested and they don't have an opportunity to sort of like end the call abruptly and let you get on with another investor that could be
Hmm.
quite interested. So in general, shortening the period of time, number one, and then number two, I would say where we notice the amount of time spent often being the longest and excessive is so much focus on the idea, right?
Right.
And explaining the problem in great detail and explaining their solution in great detail and really sort of like falling in love with their idea, their solution, where really what you as a founder want to be presenting is the fact that you have a business, right? And
Okay.
so I have sometimes, to demonstrate this point, I've even shown a founder how I could not even say what the business does, and I could get somebody excited about the business, right? I could
Hmm.
say, hey, we have this really interesting enterprise B2B SaaS company. They grew 5x last year. They've every one of their customers is expanding. There are two experts on the team that one of them did a $500 million exit prior to Google. They, the gross margin is XYZ, and I get to the end of this like really quick, snappy thing, and I ask the founder, "So what does the company do?" And I say, "Well, you haven't told me." I said, "I know, but pretty much every investor is ready to take a meeting with this company." So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just sort of demonstrates how much more powerful it is to talk about the quality of your team, the quality of your customers, what your traction's been so far, how you have thought out how you will be expanding and growing. Um, those things demonstrate often more interesting data to an investor than a long explanation of what the company does.
Can you talk a little bit about some recent success stories, or milestones that demonstrate the impact of the climate technology, or the ideas that people have been coming up with within the portfolio?
Yeah, well, so on the aggregate, we were really excited within the last few months to celebrate hitting 1 million tons of GHG emission aversion just from our portfolio companies. And to us, that felt like a really interesting milestone because I started off in this business 7 years ago and really had a belief that we could have an impact. We could do
Mm.
something that was big enough to be able to move the needle. But until you start gathering the data from the startups, until it starts to kind of roll up, you don't have proof yet that it is a viable sort of market solution. So that 1 million ton mark was exciting for us. And look, there's going to be a lot of people who hear 1 million tons and say, big deal. Like that's not very much. There's 50 billion tons of GHG emissions that are getting created annually by humans right now. But there's a couple things I'd say to that. So one, it was the speed with which we got to 1 million, and as you can imagine, I mean these curves they do
Mm.
have the ability to grow exponentially, and so we really see getting the first million is sort of the hardest, and then now we have an easy path to 10 million. We think we'll do 10 million just out of our third fund alone. And then as you start to think about what excites us as a franchise, it's like, okay, well, if we can get one fund to do 10 million, then as a franchise, it should be pretty easy for us to set a goal to do 100 million tons. And then as you start thinking about it further, like how could you get to more than that? How could you get to a gigaton or something like that?